Oh, it reminds me a bit of Drive, Taxi Driver. And I was like, I love you.
Thank you for joining us for one more round. And welcome back to episode 6 of Film Club.
Yeah, 6.2.
6.2 because somebody didn't record the audio.
So, explain film.
Every single week we invite you guys along to Film Club to talk about whatever film we happen to be watching that week. Every time we pick a film, it's something which hopefully you are familiar with and isn't necessarily stuff which is coming out brand new in cinema. It's something we can talk a little bit more in depth on. This week, we're talking Taxi Driver.
Mate, that was a really good intro, but I'm literally not recording.
Second Scorsese film in a row.
Yeah, so the basic premise of Taxi Driver is you've got one guy, Travis, played by De Niro, and the film essentially follows him around his journey in New York, from becoming a taxi driver to his perception of New York lifestyle, New York people, and him trying to open up to particular individuals, such as his love interest. He sees particular things happen, which he has massive objections to. He's very observative, but at the very same time, he's not really connected to the lifestyle there. And it culminates in this particular moment where he goes on a bit of a tangent. I like the word tangent lately. He basically goes off on the rails due to potential mental health issues that I'm sure we'll go into in a few more minutes. And he ends up shooting people.
Yeah, so I am one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and to my left over here, who's carefully monitoring the audio this time, Andy Olson.
You're clipping.
Do you want me, shut your face, do you want me to start off, or would you like to start us off this week?
I really like beer. So essentially with Taxi Driver, there was a few things I really like about it, and we'll go where we started before on the first take that we didn't record. I want to keep saying that because I hang my head in shame. Was the music, and as we mentioned before, when it's going down the street, and it's got brass instruments, and it goes da, da, like that, and it's I do you know what it is actually. That's interesting. I should have mentioned this. It's a great use of dynamic range.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when it goes up and it builds up the suspense, and then it kind of like it evens out, goes da, like that. And then obviously you have the other soundtrack that I mentioned.
It's almost like a classic horror score.
To some extent, yeah. Well, no, I was going to say I heard some people regard this as a psychological film, not a thriller. What could you call it?
No, yeah, I'd say it's a psychological thriller.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, there you go. So the music represents part of that. Excuse me, sorry. Oh man, the pizza was good as well. But yeah, the other aspect of the music, as we mentioned, the jazz New York scene, like the dingy club in the back of an alley that I'm not going to try and sing it. But the lovely saxophone it is, isn't it?
I couldn't tell you what instrument it is. Not my forte.
Yeah, saxophone. I'm sure it is, because that's essentially jazz.
It's got that kind of like, that really sort of Manhattan, almost timeless quality to it, where like, you hear that music and for some reason you think in New York. And I'm sure there's a reason for this, but I can't tell you why that
Maybe
is.
it is the dingy jazz clubs out back.
Yeah, you do feel like it's like like pub, or sort of bar, we should say, Travis would just go into and drink alone for a little bit.
Yeah. And it's, what you said about the film is Taxi Driver doesn't have I'm still worried about the record as well. Well, you're looking at it every second.
It's recording, don't worry.
No, it's not actually mentioned that it's in New York. It's something that you can tell with the taxis, with the people, everyone's like hustling and stuff. Hustling? I don't know if that's the right word to use. They're busy, they're hurrying down the street. And you get the fucking whole vibe, pretty with the sounds as well.
And yeah, that's it, the music totally feeds in that. In the beginning, you don't think about... Well, no, you don't. I'm pretty sure no one mentions where we are. But instead, you just immediately know you're in New York. It's because like the taxis are around, because like the streets feel like in New York, like they've got rubbish out on the side. There's people who have the accent. There's this like steam coming out of it. It just feels like New York, and you immediately know where you are. You
mentioned something, it might have been in Raging Bull last week, that I think it was, and he just puts you in the middle of the film. So I think it was Raging Bull. What's it called again? There's a good comparison between the two, where you're automatically like, you learn the story as you go along. There's obviously a backstory to it.
Oh, you're talking about in medias res?
Yes.
Where like we start in the middle of the action.
Yeah. Well, it's not. Excuse me, sorry. It's not in the middle of the action as such, but no, I don't think that really works as it medias res because he just comes in, he asks for a job. Really, I think I'm wrong, aren't I?
Again, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that as well.
Yeah, sorry. So it's not a medias res. I do apologise, but you kind of like throw it in and left in certain parts, left to assume, aren't you? Mm. So yeah, there's that lovely backdrop of New York and that kind of an assumption that you're in New York, and it's very, very cleverly done with the like I said, the shots, the taxis, and the music. Mm. So going on, I'll ask you, what do you think of the character of Travis?
Travis is like, he's kind of like the antithesis of an anti-hero.
Okay.
We get to see the entire film from a first-person narrative.
Yeah.
Which is like, we get to see everything from Travis' point of view. We spend like 90% of the film with Travis. Sometimes we are like with the odd other character, but other times like we're pretty much with Travis the whole time.
It's like 95% of the time we're with Travis, aren't we? If not more. Yeah,
and you get to see everything from his point of view, which is lovely because he's a weird character in that he's not likable.
Would you say he's not likable at some point, but he's also ever so slightly relatable?
Yes.
In his cynical aspects.
So he's not likable, but he's relatable, and so he's interesting, and you want to watch him.
He's the part you dislike about yourself. That negativity you have about yourself, that kind of disdain for... That's a good word, isn't it? Disdain for life.
If nothing else, he's honest about who he is.
Yes. There's no shit with him, is there?
And like that's perfect when he takes his love interest. I can't remember the girl's name, unfortunately.
I should find it, shouldn't
I? When he takes her to the cinema, when he takes her to see the film, and he goes to
the porno film.
Goes to the porno film. He's not hiding that he likes that stuff.
Yeah. But then he admits that he might not be the best thing to do after.
Yeah, maybe it's self-sabotage.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Well, he's just uncultured. He doesn't know the music, does he? The record player part. When he's asked about political things, I'm sure his answer for everything is, I don't know, but I'm sure I'd like it. And even movies as well. I think was something about maybe before or after that scene. I think it's before, because we're actually on talking grounds. But basically, he takes her to the cinema, well, you've seen it, hopefully, takes her to the cinema, and she doesn't want to speak to him again. And there's a great scene where he's in the phone box, and he bought her like 12 things of flowers.
Yeah.
And then it's really interesting to see is just how he's going after her.
And while we're on that little moment as well, where he's in the phone box and he's phoning her and going like, it's me again. Like, there's that amazing little camera move where like it's on him and he's talking on the phone, and then the camera, while he's talking without any sort of prompt, just like dollies off. And instead we get like this corridor shot towards the front entrance. And it kind of feels like the camera's
was going like, maybe you should kind of stop.
Yeah, it feels like it's going, oh my god, I can't watch this.
Which is quite funny. Like in such a serious film like that, it's like almost like a tiny bit of comic value if that's the way it was supposed to be portrayed.
Yeah, I think maybe he meant it as it's showing a disconnect.
Yeah,
it's showing a disconnect from him to what's going on. Like he's disconnected. I think that's how it's intended, but it does come across, like to me at least, as like the camera's going, this is painful to watch. Like,
it'd be quite funny if it was improvisation by De Niro, keep going on, and Scorsese's like, yeah, I'm just going to let you do that. Or he's on the phone to his actual like wife or girlfriend. Sorry, De Niro. And the camera's going away, and she's like, yeah. No, it's good. It's really good. But yeah, the character is very, very... I'm going back to my notes because I put a stopwatch on because so-and-so forgot to put a stopwatch on.
Oh no, we did it so slick.
I know.
You popped the stopwatch up and then just hit like, and I saw it and I was like, acknowledge, and you saw I acknowledged it, but then you pointed it out to everybody.
Yeah, but because it was hilarious, because he was talking to me and I was just staring at my phone and looked like it was probably disregarding you. I was like, trying to do it because I kept pressing the timer. Anyway, silly me.
So, can we talk a little bit about...
I was going to go to the character, but go on.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Well, we can go back to the character more, because the majority of the film, what makes this film superb is, excuse me, is what I found I struggled to watch it. Raging Bull I struggled to watch, but I found a lot more to go on about it. For that camera work, some of the audio I didn't really like, but you obviously had a really good point to say about that. Raging Bull was a few years after Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver is one of his earlier works, Scorsese's earlier works. Anyway, I had trouble finding stuff about the camera, the audio, besides the music. Why is this going off? Besides the music. But one thing I picked up is just how excitingly is a good word to use again. Excitingly good and interesting the script is, and the character. I don't know what the word to use is. Character. Just how the films was focused on the character. There's a particular word phrase that filmmakers use, and I can't think of anything. But
yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's first person narrative, and the film is basically a character study.
That's it. Yeah, that's what you said. Study.
So it's like it is a study of Travis's character and how he acts in these places. But like, what's fascinating about Travis is that he's not, like I say, he's not particularly a likable character. Like, he's this guy who's living in this grimy city, and
I tell you what, his room's a bit grimy as well. His flat that he lives in.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like totally aware of like how grimy this city is, and he has a problem with some like the crime.
He's
and
very
whatnot.
cynical, and he's like
totally cynical
in his monologues. He's like, oh, those, especially when she decides she wasn't to be with him anymore. She's just another one of them, sort of like these sheeps.
Yeah, and he busts into the place where she works and makes like a full on scene about the whole thing, and it's like really suddenly aggressive towards it.
Yeah, I think that like one of his moments of switching. Like is maybe like he sees this woman that he finds the most beautiful woman in his life, you know, and he says to her, one of the reasons they particularly, I keep using the word particularly, one of the moments they do connect is when he goes out to her and he puts the words in her mouth and says, you're not very happy, you know, this, you don't like it here and stuff like that. Maybe you can be happy with someone like me, which is a projection of himself on her. And you go from that, and he's almost like this chemistry between them both, because there is, because she's bloody interested. She takes him out. She goes, "Come pick me up at 4." They go out and get some food, and then obviously suddenly he takes him to a porno. To be honest, though, first date at porno. I mean, if a girl brought me, no, I shouldn't say that. But no, if I'd never bring a girl to a porno. How would you?
I think you'd struggle to find a public screening of a porno now.
Yeah, why is that? Is it big in America? They're still doing.
It's not really big in America anymore. You used to have something called a grindhouse.
What's that?
Which would be a theatre which showed porno, which is basically
what's grindhouse horror then? Is that related?
So, yeah.
Porn horror.
Basically the stuff that would be shown in that sort of place.
Oh,
and it's a style that grew out that.
Again, back alley kind of stuff.
But
very back alley.
I think that is the point in the film as well where you start to realise that this guy you're watching probably has mental problems.
Yes. There's a really good part of this film, in fact the whole film, but there's a really good point to make out that for such an early film that was late 70s, Scorsese brought some heavily important at the time, like especially now. Like now it's more registered, it's more well known, but some really like kind of major issues, especially with this guy's a veteran, isn't he? He's a ex-Marine.
Yeah.
Dare say of Vietnam. And there's some massive PTSD, there's some depression, it was insomnia. He goes on about having insomnia.
Yeah, I mean the film's steeped in this idea of loneliness.
Yeah.
In like amongst this city which is filled with people.
Which is notorious for being a social city.
Yeah.
Socialites and all that. Yeah, it really touches really well, I dare say, on the negative aspect of depression, on mental illness, mental health. Yes, I say the negative aspect, you know, it's illness, but you know what I mean? Like the more so, the things that need to be brought to light, especially in a day and age that it was brought out to the late 70s. It's really cool that he did that, and I really hope he meant it intentionally.
This is like a pretty early film for Scorsese.
Yeah.
It's like film 4 or 5.
Something like that, isn't it? You were IMDb in it.
We IMDb it early. I think it's 4 or 5, if I remember right. So it's relatively early on for him. I mean, it's not the beginning of his career. He did like some short films before, some documentaries, and then did like a couple of the feature films. But still, given his filmography, it's pretty early on.
Now, with regards to the character, he wants to make a difference in life. We're still going to the character, but obviously it's a major part. He wants to make a difference. Now, this really relates to another film as well. In fact, I was just having a conversation, just going on another tangent again. Great word. Excuse me. I was speaking to my friend Alex today, and we're on about a film with Ryan Gosling called Half Nelson. And it's absolutely spectacular. In fact, it's something I'd like to do for Future Film Club. And yes, it's a character-driven film. There's a couple of side characters, but majorly Gosling. And there's one thing in this, I shouldn't really say it, but how it relates to this is both characters want to make a difference. There's a lot more to Half Nelson, but this is one of the things that they're going about. They want to do something significant. They want to have their life to have some meaning. And in the way that De Niro's he's got a cynical outlook at life, but he wants to do something where not that it will be remembered. Maybe it's the Marine part of him that getting inside. He wants to make a difference in someone's life. So obviously there's a political part, and he goes at the start. He enjoys the political candidate, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to vote for you for this." Then suddenly he's going to assassinate him. I help me with like why he wants to do that. But do you reckon because for someone like you said earlier that's very upfront and very vocal about how they feel, why is he then going from like oh, I think you're a really good guy to then, or maybe it's because there's love interest is working for the political part, and like that guy there, and maybe he associates the political part with the reason that she doesn't want him. Therefore, he's like,
yeah, I think you're kind of led to believe that like he wants to do it to get back at her in some way,
right,
as like a revenge thing. But like it's at that point in the film where I was a little worried because the film had started. I was worried the film had started going off the deep end in terms of the mental illness stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just starting to make him just a little bit like randomly crazy. Because he goes from there, like he fails the assassination basically. He gets seen.
One end fails the assassination.
He legs it. And that's when he goes to the pimp. What's he called? Sport.
Like that. Yeah, Sport. That's what Jodie Foster called him.
Yeah,
so he goes.
That's when he goes to the pimp, the guy who runs the hotel, and the guy who's with Jodie Foster at the time, and he just slaughters all three of them.
And what you know what was really cool in that as well is how I love how like his reaction to the gunshots. Everyone else is kind of like, it's very realistic and is quite gory, to be honest. But everyone else is like reacting to the gunshots like this. He gets shot in the fucking face through the cheek or something daft.
Through the neck, isn't it?
Oh, that's it, through the neck. And he barely reacts at all. He just turns around and shoots the guy.
Yeah.
Then he gets shot point blank in the fucking arm.
Which adds, like, I guess, part of it's maybe the military background, but
I was
also...
going to say, do you reckon he got shot and that's to do with his PTSD?
Maybe.
And what was
it might also be like the fact that it's
he's not arsed.
he's also mentally not there. But yeah, so it's at that point I was thinking, has he just like, have they just made this guy going off the deep end because he's crazy? So I was a bit like, what is this? And then they did something at the end. It's when he's in the taxi rank with his friends, and one of them says, "Oh, someone's in your cab." So he gets in the cab, and it's the girl from the political office who'd be in the date with him in the back.
His love interest.
His love interest. And suddenly...
And she's like this, isn't she?
Suddenly she's interested again.
She's like, ooh, ooh. Shooting stars. Go on.
That's immortalised forever now. So suddenly she's interested, and I couldn't help but think, you clever bastard.
Clever bastard.
That's what I was doing to Scorsese.
That's exactly what you're doing, yeah.
So I couldn't help that because, like...
Sorry, I just completely ruined your
to
point.
To me, I thought... I don't know if you got this from it, but I got... He'd actually done this whole thing as a way of piquing her interest again. Because, like, suddenly she had this, like, sympathy.
That'd be pretty fucking... I shouldn't use the word crazy. Pretty, what's the word? That would be dedication.
Dedication. Maybe that's giving him too much credit. Maybe he's not that intelligent.
I think, well, whoever has a mohawk is intelligent.
Not a rule.
What?
That is not a rule.
You're not a rule.
Thanks.
Going on about the mohawk, it's a good, I think that's a good point in which his psyche changes. It's a good image.
Yeah. Visually it's showing exactly how he's kind of, what he's going through at the time.
I loved his little thing as well, his gun thing as well. It goes through. But no, you're right about the end scene. Yes, massively.
I love that scene.
Doesn't give a shit at all, does he?
That scene, that moment where the police are coming in, he's just...
That's just before he tries to top himself, but he can't, can he?
Beautiful.
He's just like, yeah, fuck this.
So, there's one thing I want to bring up, right? Can we jump back to the loneliness again? It's this film.
You know all about being lonely, don't you?
I'm so lonely.
But go on, please.
It's about this film's use of slow motion.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, dropping out the diegetic sound, which is like the sound of the film world. Dropping that out and just keeping the music.
So keeping the music just for the audience. So the only thing that's present is the slow motion of De Niro walking through. And then the music that we as an audience hear, not De Niro. Which is quite interesting because that means that you're essentially what do you put them two together? You put the music together, they put the slow mo, you put an emphasis on De Niro.
Yeah, like you kind of you lose the world around him. So instead it isolates it down onto just him, and you feel like you get this little moment with just him, which is exactly how he feels. He feels isolated and lonely in this city, and we get these little slicey moments of it.
Which is interesting because the music in question, yes, it's the dingy backstreets of New York, but you could argue that loners tend to be, but it's also New York, which is, again, like I said, notorious for being a social city. So there we go. Again, same room, same position, a juxtaposition of the music. I like using that word. No, but it's very interesting, like associating him with that particular music. And it depends because it has got two parts of the music. You've got the heavily like, da, which is like the more like the thriller one, that intense build up. And then you've got the lovely jazz, which is the happy part. And yes, he's been portrayed in different parts, whether it's a slow-mo or not. He's got the music goes alongside him with both the more intense side of that soundtrack and the more happy, the jazzy one of that soundtrack. And yet the happy one doesn't feel like it should fit, and yet it does.
Yeah.
Like, he comes across and you hear this jazzy music and it's just like, that's not Travis. That's not Travis at all. But yet at the same time, it kind of works.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But maybe it is because it's the dingy back streets of New York.
You want fun fact of the film?
Please enlighten me.
So, when he's in the taxi and he's got a guy in the back
with glasses.
Doesn't have glasses, does he?
Okay, well either way, he doesn't.
He pulls
I know
up
this.
and he's looking at the window.
Can you guess who it is?
Yeah, do you know who played him?
Yeah. I'd read it before, then I read it after when I was just double checking a few things out, and being tired at the time when I watched it last night, I was like this watching it last night. It's Scorsese.
It's Scorsese.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I hadn't seen a picture of Scorsese when he was younger.
Tarantino, try that.
Yeah, I mean Tarantino, that's a cameo.
Burn.
I hadn't seen a picture of Scorsese when he was younger.
He's
Never
mad,
would have
isn't
thought
Yeah.
he looked like
He's
that.
got a beard, hasn't he?
Never
I tell you what
would
he
have
looks like. He
thought
looks like a young Spielberg.
Oh, he does actually. Like, look, Mick Spielberg with young George Lucas.
Shit, that's a good shout.
He's the love child.
Go on,
Young
Scorsese.
Scorsese.
I tell you what,
and young Spielberg.
I wish I could show you this picture. There's an absolutely fantastically good picture. Scorsese now, he's notorious for his white hair, his big black rimmed glasses. There's a class picture, an absolutely unreal picture my mum gave me back when I lived with her, of our granddad, who unfortunately passed away quite a few years ago, many years ago. And he's got his legendary burgundy jumper on. Not like this, but a bit similar. More of a, those granddad socks where you got the diamonds.
Oh, Argyle.
Argyle. It could be Argyle. Anyway, he always wore it. And he's just sat there at a table, smoking a cigar. And I tell you what, mate, I've never seen anyone look more boss than my granddad in that picture.
He looks like Scorsese.
He looks like Scorsese. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you remember you showed me it and the first thing I said was, your granddad looks like Scorsese?
Yeah. Unbelievable. So that's really cool to have. I've got that somewhere. I need to fish it out and actually find it. So yeah, Scorsese, great cameo. Sorry, I just thought I'd liken him to my granddad.
That was good.
So Andy asked me before this, when we were trying to find a decent intro to go off, something that was hilarious, that he could go, welcome back for one more round, which is our little thing. And he asked me if there's anyone that Travis, because this is going to go on something, if there's anything, who does Travis remind you of? Who's the character Travis remind you of? So I took a little while to think, a few seconds, and I thought, my favourite film, Drive. The driver from Drive. And yet what's really interesting is Taxi Driver and Drive have this kind of particular noir kind of feel to it. There's a heavy emphasis in the music. Oh wow, I'm just actually figuring stuff out as I'm going along. And the drivers are so like kind of isolated in those films. I don't want to say too much more about Drive because we will definitely be picking up on. But there's a really good kind of what's the word? Not relationship. Similarity between the two characters.
Yeah.
Of those films, which I fucking love. So it's quite interesting because I should have really liked Taxi Driver more than I did because of that comparison.
Well, I mean, you can see where like Drive took some of its influence from. Like this film, you're right, it's a neo-noir in the way it's presented. Everything's neon. You've got this kind of like smoky atmosphere to it. It's gritty. It's gritty. It's grimy.
Oh, gritty and grimy.
Thanks. And yeah, both of the driver and the taxi driver here are kind of isolated in very busy situations. Like they're in very, very busy cities, and yet they just love to kind of
disconnected,
watch people,
yeah,
and like watch the world go by. Yeah, they're very, very observant of what they're doing. Yeah. So last week we watched Raging Bull. This is our second Scorsese in a row. Comparatively, I know last week you said that you probably couldn't recommend Raging Bull to everyone.
I think it's similar with Taxi Driver, because we were saying how, especially when I was watching it last night, I'm fucked lately, like exhausted. And I was watching it last night and I was trying to find it hard to watch it here and there. But there are bits that really get to you. Like I think it's a bit of a depressing film. So it's not kind of film that you go out if you want to watch a really cool action, like, oh, let's watch Mission Impossible because it's got a bit of comic relief in and stuff like that. Yeah, don't watch Taxi Driver.
Yeah, like Scorsese's not trying to make an entertaining film.
Yeah.
Like if you like film, it's entertaining.
Yeah.
But he's not trying to entertain the audience. He's trying to, like we said, do a character study here.
Yeah.
He's trying to like look at this guy and see kind of how he would react in certain situations.
It's good. What it's good for is if you have a particular interest in veterans of Vietnam and how they come back into modern day life. Yes, it's a very exaggerated example, but I imagine a lot of the qualities that Travis has are an extreme example of a veteran at that time, like the PTSD, the depression, the insomnia, the complete obliviousness to being shot. But yeah, no, it's worth watching. Just like Raging Bull, they are different films in their own way, but they do have a heavy emphasis on the characters who are played by De Niro, which is directed by Scorsese. The soundtrack's a bit different. The sound is different in that Raging Bull, as Andy said last week, is the levels are all a bit all over each other, as if you feel like you're there, and there's no emphasis in the dialogue. Whereas Taxi Driver, there is emphasis in the dialogue.
Yeah, in Raging Bull, he was kind of like blending some of the audio, some of the dialogue into the audio mix.
Yeah.
To give you that kind of, I guess what we talked about last week was maybe it was to give you that Manhattan feeling of like people buzzing around you. Just like one voice in a sea of them.
New York as well, isn't it?
Whereas this is a bit easier on the ears, I guess.
Oh, good film. Definitely a good film, but you have to be in the right mood for it. And I kind of wish I watched it in a better mood.
I'd say, yeah, I mean,
because I was falling asleep, I was tired, I was like this, but it's shit lately with me.
Weirdly enough, like, so was I. I'm not normally the sort of person like to fall asleep in films at all, but I was kind of falling asleep a little bit, and by no means because of the film. Like, the film is awesome. If anything, it was the film that actually would occasionally snap me back into like total awakeness,
like that, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And it was just I just happened to be absolutely knackered when I watched this. And occasionally a scene would come along where it would just snap me back into it, and I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
This film is absolutely incredible. It's like it's a masterpiece in filmmaking, but it's a masterpiece in filmmaking which isn't designed to be like I said, entertaining.
Talking to me.
I am definitely talking to you. And we're talking to you. And if you want to talk to us about either Raging Bull,
Smooth,
Taxi Driver, or whatever is coming up next week,
which is, we should go into it, shouldn't we?
Like crazy.
Completely different film to Taxi Driver. So and Raging Bull. So these lovely dramas, whereas Like Crazy is, well, I'm not going to say much because you're going to have to watch it, because I bought him Like Crazy. I paid £3 for that bloody film for him to have a physical copy to watch it.
DVD is actually up there.
Oh shit, I was going to get it out. I'm actually half tempted to get off camera to go and get it, but I'm a bit too lazy to do that.
Well, you go get that, I'll do the outro. So if you want to talk to us about
Netflix,
please get in touch either in the comments down below, or you can get in touch with us on Twitter.
Sorry, that was loud.
You can get in touch with us on Twitter and let us know what you think of Like Crazy.
It's $2.99 each. I went out and bought him that, and he hasn't watched it in a fucking year. Actually, I probably bought it 6 months ago.
Like the whole reason we actually removed the schedule for Film Club to include Like Crazy a little bit earlier on, because I haven't watched it yet.
Anyone who's looking towards Rogue One, it's got Felicity Jones, and this is one of her breakout performances. It's also got the late Anton Yelchin, and I don't want to say much, but it's some of the best acting I've ever seen. And it's quite possibly, I've said this before, it's quite possibly the best indie film I've ever seen.
How long we've been building up to this, like...
I can't wait.
I'm really looking forward to next week. I haven't seen this before, so I'm really looking forward to finally getting around to this.
Who's the director? Drake Doremus. So yes, see this next week. Please do watch it. Don't be a fucktard. And please watch this film. Let us know what you think, because I'm especially eager to hear it. He couldn't give a shit.
I'm looking forward to it. So comment below, hit us up on Twitter, and we'll see you next week for Like Crazy.
Bye.
And Punk IPA is awesome.
Ah.